I'm bored. Let's talk about Nerdrotic's channel. All right, so I'm working on a larger project, but as I was doing that, I came across some information about Nerdrotic's channel that I thought would be worthy of having a separate video to talk about. And that is, I think the Nerdrotic Friday Night Tights podcast has plateaued. I think they hit their ceiling, and we're not seeing them break that ceiling. There is no breaking that. They're literally at a point where they've just reached a number we see pretty consistently every single time with no real growth for that podcast. And the weird thing is that the subs for Nerdrotic's channel are going up slower than they were before. We'll talk about that in a second. The subs are going up, but the viewership on the flagship podcast for them, which is Friday Night Tights, is the biggest one. It's reached a point where we're seeing consistently between 180 and 300,000 views, which still makes it quite possibly the largest fandom podcast on YouTube. I'd have to look around a little bit more, but I think they still are the largest in terms of viewership. But they're not growing even though the subs are going up. And that tells us a couple things. Firstly, that means that new subs coming in are either replacing subscribers who are no longer watching the content. They're just replacing those views, or they're not really watching the content. And it's just the same older subscribers that are still watching Friday Night Tights. Or it could be a combination of both of those things. It really depends on how you look at it. Now, before we look at the actual numbers for Friday Night Tights, I did a little bit of math. And from 2023 to September of 2023 to September of 2024, Nerdrotic's channel grew roughly around 200,000 subscribers based on all the information that was available to me. And I looked at multiple places. All right, so that's the bar we're going to use. We're going to go 1 year and then this year, a year back, and then the year we're in now. So 2023 to 2024, 200,000 new subscribers on Nerdrotic's channel. And at that time, we did not see a major growth in Friday Night Tights. There was no uptick. I've already looked through a ton of episodes and I've done the math. There was no huge uptick. There was no change. I mean, there's slight changes on individual episodes every now and again because of who the guest is, but consistently, it still falls within that 180 and 300,000 viewership range in terms of like overall views. That's just it, really. Going from September of 2024 to September of 2025, he gained a little over 100,000 subscribers. I think the top end was 110,000 on what the information I could find. So going from 200,000 in a year period to 110,000 is a pretty significant drop. I think the percentage on that is like somewhere in the 45 to 46% range. So we're talking about around 90,000 less subscribers in a 1 year period from 2023 to 2024, going into 2024 to 2025. So the channel is still growing. We've talked about this before. The channel is still growing, but at a much, much slower rate. And we're not seeing massive views on Friday Night Tights. Like there's no explosion of views for that podcast. Now, I want to take a look here at the views, just so you guys can see. These are like the most recent videos and whatnot. So here we go. 177,000 views streamed 2 days ago. This will probably go up. I don't know how much, but it'll probably go up. It's got Critical Drink on the thumbnail. Most likely it'll get a bit more views on it. 178. This is 3 months ago. 195. 3 months ago, 228. 2 weeks ago, 207. Streamed 2 months ago, 208. So I'm showing you this on purpose to give you guys an idea of the range of numbers that this podcast typically gets. A month ago was 154. So that's on the low end. I don't think I've seen a lot below 150 in the last 2 years' time. Is there any here in this list? No, we're not seeing any yet. 207, 159, 2 months ago, 205, 2 months ago, 191. I also want to talk, the reason why I'm talking about this is because a lot of people got mad when I was providing information about channels that are abandoned or channels that are dying out because their video uploads have either stalled or the views aren't good or whatever. I wanted to talk about this because this is literally the premier anti-woke outrage grifty podcast on YouTube. This is the one. This is the big one, right? So I wanted to talk about this specifically for that reason. Here we go. 162,000, 184,000, 156,000, 196,000. As you see, within like the year range here, the numbers kind of stick between 150 and 300. Very rarely does it break 500,000. I've seen a couple of them that have gone that high, just a couple of them. And it doesn't typically get below 150,000, like I said, on any of these. All right, but you might say, Eric, this is recent. What do you mean plateaued? Do you mean they're not getting significantly more views than they used to get in the past? And so I decided, let me go back and look at the Friday Night Tights streams from a few years ago, just to sort of get a snapshot of where we're at, right? So let's do this. We're going to go over here. I'm going to open another tab. Let me make the window the right size here, so it's similar. All right. Here we go. Sharing this tab instead. All right. So this is Friday Night Tights from 3 years ago. Okay. I did this chronologically. As you can see, 250,000 views, 190,000 views, 221,000 views, 181,000 views, 158K views, 183,000, 170, 240, 351 with Alex Jones 3 years ago. Probably one of the bigger ones. 300,000, 292,000. Now that I'm looking at this, the big bumps they're getting in views aren't really happening anymore either. We're not seeing that anymore. 241,000 views, 196,000 views, 134,000 views. And yeah, so we're looking specifically at Friday Night Tights, right? 334,000 views. Here we go. This is 3 years ago. Here's another one, 263,000 views. As you can see, they're not going up in viewership. If we switch back over here, you'll see that these numbers, to be quite honest, are slightly down from some of the previous ones. We were seeing back 3 years ago those big bumps in time where they were getting 300,000 plus more consistently, more regularly. Whereas here we're seeing it's not really happening anymore. Some of these are not even getting to 200,000 views. There's a big one there with streamed a year ago during the larger percentage of growth for his channel. 259. So see, look at this. 2 years ago, 256. Yeah, it's really weird. I feel like, if I had to be quite honest about this, I think his channel has plateaued. I think Nerdrotic's channel has plateaued from the perspective of viewership. It's still going to grow subscribers, whether they're real subscribers or not, whether they're actually watching the content or not, we don't know. But I think viewership has plateaued. And when it starts happening to the flagship live stream, the bread and butter of the channel, which is Friday Night Tights, that is, regardless of what they try to tell you, it doesn't matter how many individual videos he puts out, doesn't matter how many shows he does with other people, Friday Night Tights is the big one. That's the one that's at the top of the hill from these guys. So if you are watching their content, typically you're somebody that's going to watch Friday Night Tights, if you're like a diehard person for these channels. And so seeing that the numbers on that, because you guys try to give me shit all the time about that, seeing that the numbers on that have flattened out and in some ways are actually not as high as some of the views from like 3 years ago, it's a pretty big deal. It's a pretty big deal. So I think Nerdrotic's channel has plateaued. I'm going to be quite honest. I think they've reached the ceiling. I don't think there's anywhere else for them to go. Like I said last year, before the election, a lot of the people that were doing this were doing it with the assumption that they were contributing to some sort of cultural change. Once that cultural change happened in their mind, they've done all the hard work and it's time to move on. Now, we could argue conspiracy theories about whether or not there was money being invested in inflating the views from not necessarily Nerdrotic, but maybe other groups that wanted this to be a big deal. We could argue that. That is just personal speculation based on other things we've seen happening when it comes to like fandom content and political content in this space. So that's a little bit of speculation. No proof of that. I'm not accusing Nerdrotic of doing that. I would have to look more into it. But most certainly we can see there's a slowing down of subscribers. Almost 50%. Almost a 50% slowdown in subscribers year to year. And most certainly based on going through, and I'm sorry I had to be pedantic about it and like scroll through it, but that's because people accuse me of making stuff up. I wanted you guys to see it for yourselves. You can look at it. The numbers are there. They do not lie. We're seeing smaller numbers on Friday Night Tights. We're not seeing those big, huge jumps in viewership they used to get. And subs are going up, meaning that, again, roping all the way back to the beginning of this video, either people are not watching anymore, like the older subscribers, and the new subs that are coming in are keeping those views high, or only the older subscribers are still watching and a lot of them are dropping off and the new subs aren't watching the live streams. It's one or the other. if this trend continues, it's going to be really hard for Nerdrotic to keep his channel at the level it's at in terms of like production quality, output, artwork, topical stuff. It's going to be really, really hard for him to do that. It's going to be really hard for him to get some of the bigger people to come on as guests, because I don't know if how he does it himself specifically, but a lot of these channels actually pay for people to come on the channels. There's either a payment there or there's some sort of exchange of like, you get promotion from being on the channel. We'll come over. I'll do a stream with you, something like that. There's definitely some sort of exchanging there when it comes to this, because the higher profile content creators wouldn't take out like 3 to 4 hours of their night to go on a podcast if they weren't getting some sort of compensation. I'm just being honest. They wouldn't. And that's their prerogative. They're allowed to do that. If somebody wants to charge for an appearance, then they can. Anyway, let me know your thoughts and opinions on all of this. And as you can see, I am wearing my official shill sweater for the holidays. It is available on my Fourth Wall shop. So if you want to be a shill for anything you love, you can do it with pride wearing one of these sweaters. Am I selling it good? Is that a good salesman there? Of course, the I'm Bored cap is available from Fourth Wall. All quality products. I'm really happy to be working with Fourth Wall to bring this merch to you guys. There's much more coming. So you can go over there and make sure you become a regular visitor of the shop, because there's going to be a lot of fun ideas and merch coming out that aren't just related to this channel, just creative stuff in general from myself. So you definitely want to keep an eye on that. But go grab yourself a shill sweater and let the world know that you are a shill. There's nothing wrong with loving the stuff you love.